Hey guys, welcome back to another day for math. Really excited to bring today's lessons to you as we start to get into area of triangles, which is a great formula to work with. Just a reminder for you guys, today is going to look a little differently than what we have done to this point as far as your daily assignments. So you have this Edpuzzle video, which you guys are watching now. And you will also have an Envision assignment to complete after this video. Okay, and that's the only assignments you have today. On Thursday, you have your Math Olympics that you'll need to complete, as well as another Edpuzzle video that's a review lesson of what we're doing today. Okay, so that's just kind of a reminder of what's going to happen going forward. Okay. So I do have another 6th grade trivia question for you. Okay, and this question actually stems around the holidays. Yeah, I know we had Easter and celebrated Easter last week, but this holiday I'm thinking of is Halloween. Okay, in 6th grade, that was the final year that I dressed up and went trick-or-treating. So after that year, I have not gone, I have not dressed up and gone trick-or-treating since. I've passed out candy, but not done the whole trick-or-treating and dressed up with it. So, I want you guys to try to guess what was a Halloween costume that I dressed up as back in 6th grade, my final year of trick-or-treating. I will give you a slight hint. I guess you could say it's not surprising that a future math teacher might dress up like this. So it's not, it's not really a character. But I guess you could say some math teachers, I don't know, could get labeled with this type of person. So that's a little hint as to what I dressed up as in 6th grade. Okay. And then I want to know from you guys, what was your most recent Halloween costume? I do remember quite a few of yours from this year. What was your most favorite Halloween costume? And maybe what are some future Halloween costumes that you hope to wear? Go ahead and answer those questions now. All right, guys. So today, as I said before, we are getting into area of triangles. Well, to look at area of triangles, we first have to recall what the formula for area of a parallelogram is. Okay. Just to recall and bring that formula to your mind, I want you guys to right now go ahead and enter in what the full formula for area of a parallelogram is. Okay, go ahead and do that now. All right, so area of a parallelogram, just as a refresher, is the area equals the base multiplied by the height. Recall that the base comes from either the bottom of the parallelogram or the top part of the parallelogram, and where the height goes from one base to the other base that's perpendicular. So it's a perpendicular line, meaning a 90-degree angle line that goes from one base to the other base. And as we said before, this 90-degree angle is X marks the spot that tells us where we're going to use the base and where we're going to use the height in our parallelogram. Well, as I said before, this is going to be very helpful for all of the formula for areas that we're going to deal with. Okay, so keep this in mind, that wherever the perpendicular line is in a 90-degree angle, that's going to tell you what two numbers to use, as it does with area of a parallelogram. Well, if this is the area of a parallelogram, let's start to break down this parallelogram. Did you guys know, just like in a rectangle and a square, you can take a parallelogram and cut and draw a line from from one corner to the other, making this diagonal line, and you're cutting the parallelogram in half to make two identical triangles. And notice how here's the base for the one, and it still has the same height. And the same thing for this other triangle. It's going to have the same base because these opposite sides are congruent. And it's going to have the same height going from one base to the other base. So you've created two triangles. You've cut the parallelogram in half. Well, so what? What does that matter? How would that even help us with figuring out the formula for area of a triangle? Well, if we know the formula for area of a parallelogram, cutting a parallelogram in half might actually help us with the formula for area of a triangle. As I said before, notice we had a whole parallelogram, cut it in half, and we take one triangle and we want to find the area of that. So breaking this down, the formula for area of a parallelogram was the area equals the base times the height. Well, if we're only looking at one of these triangles, we're not looking at the whole parallelogram. Well, then what could we do instead? Some of you might be saying to yourself, well, couldn't you just divide by 2? And you're absolutely right. You could technically take the area of the parallelogram and divide it by 2. Okay? And that is one way to arrive at your answer. However, we're going to look at it a different way. Okay? Because this is the formula that's used most common when we talk about area of a triangle. And it's the same thing as dividing by 2, but just a little bit different. Okay? Instead of dividing by 2, we are actually going to multiply by half. So our formula, sorry, they just keep popping up there. So our formula for area of a triangle is A, or area, equals 1/2, so our half, multiplied by B, and then multiplied by H, with B being the base still. Nothing's changing from our parallelogram. And H being the height. Okay, just like before. The only difference is now we're taking half of the parallelogram, right? So we would just multiply it by half. We're cutting the parallelogram in half, so we're going to take half of it. Okay? Well, let's start looking at some problems with triangles in it. So we have this side of a birdhouse that's in the shape of a right triangle. We want to know what is the area of the side of the birdhouse. All right, we're going to use the formula A equals 1/2 times base times height. Now, even if it's written here, we're still going to rewrite it to start off with. We're always going to rewrite the formula that we're using. So we have A, or area, equals 1/2. Everything seems it's getting slanted. Multiplied by base, multiplied by height. Right. Since the question's asking what is the area, we know that we need to figure out what the A is going to be, or what area. So we can bring down A. We don't know what that is at this time. We can bring down our half. We have not used it yet. We can bring down our multiplication sign. Well, let's identify what our base and our height is. Recall that perpendicular angle, or that 90-degree angle, is always going to tell you where your base and your height is. So there's the X marks the spot. Your base will always be the one that runs along the bottom, usually. Okay? And in this case, it's 8 inches. So we're going to substitute in 8 for the base. And the height runs from the top of the triangle, the top of one base, to the top of the other. In this case, it's going to be 8. So we have a height of 8. Well, then you can go about multiplying all of this out, okay, and typing it into your calculator. Now I'm going to try to walk you through, okay, what this is going to look like on your calculator. So to type in the half and the fraction, remember we have this handy dandy ABC button, okay, that we can use. So I'm going to hit, can look down at the screen below. So I'm going to hit 1, then I'm going to hit this ABC button. It's going to put that little backwards L. and then I'm going to go ahead and hit 2. So we have 1/2. That's how we would write it. Go ahead and hit your multiplication symbol. Sorry, guys. Multiplication symbol. Then hit 8. Hit your multiplication symbol again. And hit 8 again. Okay, so you should have in your calculator 1/2 multiplied by 8 multiplied by 8. Go ahead and hit enter. When you do, oops, I'm sorry, that says 188. When you do, you will get 32 as the number answer. Now, since we're dealing with area, this isn't going to be our final answer. Recall, area always has units that are going to be squared. So our final answer is 32 inches squared. Okay, or another way to write the inches squared, as you did last week, was your unit, the caret, and then 2. Okay, let's look at some more. I want you guys to try to tackle this one on your own right now. Go for it. Okay, so for this one, we're going to use the formula for area of a triangle again, which is A equals 1/2 multiplied by base multiplied by height. The perpendicular angle, 90-degree angle, is marking the spot for our base and our height. Our base is 9 and our height is 6. We can enter that into our calculator and multiply it all out, and that would get us 27 centimeters squared. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, we got a funky looking one here. Okay, we actually have 2 perpendicular angles here. Okay, so we're going to begin with our formula for area of a triangle. Recall that our formula is A equals 1/2 multiplied by base multiplied by height. Now you could choose either one of these 90-degree angles and still arrive at the same answer. I'm going to choose this one though first. So we're going to choose it, get our X marks the spot. Our base is 12 and our height is 3. We substitute that in for B and H. And then we multiply 1/2 by 12 by 3. And that's going to get us 18 meters squared. Now if you did it with the other angle, okay, your base is 4, your height is 9. You would get the same answer. 1/2 times 9 times 4 would get you 18 as well. Okay, let's look at this one together as well. So find the area of the triangle here. So recall the formula we're going to use is A equals 1/2 times base times height. Our perpendicular 90-degree angle still marks the spot. Our base is only going to be 6 though. We're not going to count this as part of our base. So our base is 6 and the height goes from here down below. Now because this is obtuse, our 90-degree angle or perpendicular angle sometimes may be on the outside. So that's where we get the 3 from. So when we substitute in 6 for the base and 3 for the height, you can multiply those together and arrive at 9 centimeters squared. Okay, I want you guys to try this one on your own. So for this one, just a reminder, our formula for this triangle is 1/2 times base times height. Here's our perpendicular angle marking the spot. Our base is going to be 12 and our height is going to be 6. We substitute in 12 for the base, 6 for the height. Multiply this all together in your calculator or on paper, and you would get 36 inches squared. Okay guys, I want you to try this last one on your own. Go for it. So for this one, you might be asking yourself, well, there's 3 numbers here. Don't I have to use them all? Or what numbers do I even use? Because there are 3, but I need 2 of them. Recall, as I've stated before, that this perpendicular angle, or the 90-degree angle, marks the spot as to what 2 numbers you need to use. 14 centimeters is going to be your base, and 16 centimeters is going to be your height, which means this 23 centimeters doesn't apply. When you substitute in 14 for the base and 16 for the height, and you multiply 1/2 by 14 by 16, you're going to get 112 centimeters squared. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a fantabulous rest of your day.